Today we have a small conversation with Colette Maat. So, Colette, can you introduce yourself? Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Well, like you said, I'm Colette Maat, originally McNally. I am originally from Northern Ireland, and I am a life coach, health coach, and I specialize in health and wellness in terms of fitness, yoga, and basically simplifying your life. That's kind of my speciality.
Wow, it's nice. I would like to ask you the first question. What made you choose to start your life in the Netherlands?
Well, I did what a lot of people do. They marry someone Dutch and they end up here. My ex-husband now is Dutch, so, and my daughter was born here.
It's an honest answer.
Yeah.
So, how do you fit in the new country and culture?
Well, that's actually a good question, because new to me is not really new, because I come from kind of a colorful background in terms of location. So where my country is, my home country, I have not lived there for 40 years actually. So, and since that I've moved around a lot. So I would consider the last place that I lived long term as being the country that I moved from. So that was New Zealand. So how did I find it coming here? Well, I was here before New Zealand for a while, and now I came back after New Zealand. It took a while. It took, yes, it took a while to adjust, but I already knew the culture, and it took a while to get used to the huge differences in New Zealand and here again.
So it's at first also willingness to be flexible for you, to adjust to new countries and to accept
Yeah.
both good and bad. So tell me
Yes.
about the biggest challenge you have had to deal with in the Netherlands, and how did you adapt to this challenge?
Um, well, yeah, I guess there was a few challenges, but one that kind of pops into my head is and I guess it's part of sort of my belief at the time anyway. So, on my part, half of it came from my inner beliefs. And that was that I felt the need to prove myself. I felt the need to justify myself and prove that I actually do know how to live life. And I have actually lived a life before here. Life does exist outside the Netherlands. So for me, that was huge. And then another challenge I would imagine, I think, was pretty major, was dealing with workmen, project managing, like house renovations, house buying. So I've done a lot of that. And here I found that incredibly difficult. One, because I'm a female, and you might think that's kind of archaic, but that's the way it was at the time. And the fact that I needed to really prove that I was capable of doing this project managing of my own place. So I think that was probably quite overwhelming and yeah, challenging at the time. And how did I overcome it? By being a really good project manager and just being myself, being kind actually as well, and accepting that, okay, not everybody is going to accept me, not everybody is going to think the way I do, and things need to be done, and I can be kind and get it done well, or I can fight against it and perhaps risk not getting it done at all.
Yes, acceptance,
Yeah,
the change
yeah,
is inevitable. It's a very good quality, and also focus on how you could adapt successfully. evaluating
Yeah.
the situation and finding maybe the support which you need from others.
Yeah.
So it's a good quality. And can you tell me about a specific thing you had never done before? And how did you react and what did you learn?
Thing I've never done before. Well, there's a lot of them. One is eat raw herring. I still don't. I think the kissing, the 3 times kissing, that I still don't do it. Well, of course we don't do it at the moment anyway. But I kind of resisted that because I feel it's a kind of an intrusion of my personal space. I did it in the beginning because I felt I had to in order to be part of or accepted. But then once I understood that that's actually, okay, that's a custom, I respect it, of course, and I don't have to partake. I that's my personal space. And the thing I most find, and I still find really, I don't understand, is the congratulating other people when it's someone's birthday, congratulating everybody. That I do it, of course, if I'm involved in a particular, because I know that's part of Dutch culture, and I respect that. And will I be phoning up my sisters when their husbands are having a birthday? Probably not. So that, yeah, I find that quite, I still find it a little bit, I question it.
So I see your willingness to leave your comfort zone and knowing you will learn something valuable from this experience. So the next question is, please describe a situation in which you embarrassed, in which you were embarrassed, and how did you handle the situation? What was the outcome?
Embarrassment, actually. Yeah, I think it was when I was buying a paintbrush, and instead of asking for a paintbrush, I asked for a paint breast, the literal translation. And I think what I actually at the time, I didn't realize it until I left the shop that there was nothing, it wasn't a major event. It just, for me inside, it was funny when I realized what I did. And I just, things like that are not over amplified here in the Netherlands, and that's my experience. Things like that are not immediately put out front and each party roaring and laughter. That doesn't happen. So I took it upon myself to just laugh inwardly as I left the shop, and I still giggle at that. I think it was funny.
Yeah, I think it's funny too. As the next question is, please describe a situation in which you embraced the Netherlands, the language and people. That was a major departure from the old way of how you did things in your old country.
That's again a good question. Let me just think. Oh yeah. Ask me the question again. Sorry.
Could you describe a situation which you embraced the Netherlands, the language and people? That was a major departure from the old way of how you did things in your old country. So maybe exploring some new ways.
Okay, well, yeah, actually, there's one in particular. Well, so there's a few things that I have embraced, and the one that stands out that I have actually adopted is doing things by appointment, and not just taken for granted that someone will be home when you want them to be, or call when you want them to be there to hear. So that I've adopted because I do value my personal space. I value my time. I value, my own freedom. So I've grown to respect that more. and that did take me a while to get used to, because, well, if I think it's, you know, far removed from my own country, I guess if you go back sort of 40 years to Ireland, I think that wouldn't happen there. You know, the door is always open and people drop by all the time. And also in New Zealand, it's more flowing, free flowing. So coming back here, that was one of the things that I found that I needed to embrace and actually was willing to embrace. And now I have that as my, I mean, it doesn't mean that no one can pop by and see me, and that would be nice, but at the same time, I value my freedom and my personal space.
It seems you learned a lot, and you discovered some new ways, and it's nice that you embraced the change finally.
Yeah, and another thing actually is learning that not everybody wants to hear everything. And I'm talking about being completely open, and to the point of too open and vulnerable. Not everybody wants to hear that. Not everybody is open and vulnerable and wants to show that either. So it's being very selective on who, and really reading the situation, if you can, correctly, to know when and where you can open up. You can have the freedom to open up and be vulnerable. So, and I think that again, that was a huge learning curve, because I tend to, you know, ta-da, here I am, you know, everything open, and that has reined in over the years, I think. I mean, in total, I've been here 10 and a half years. So over the years, bit by bit, through making mistakes in those situations, then I feel now, even though I still need to learn more about reading a situation, I think I'm a little bit more hesitant to show all.
So you embraced the change, but you also stay yourself.
Yes, and sometimes it is a challenge to rein it in, because, you know, when you have it in your DNA to be open, and, you know, if just to want to share, and then sometimes that can be a little bit stifling to hold back, but necessary for sure.
Yeah. Describe a time when you felt stressed or overwhelmed. How did you handle it?
I think actually going back to what I mentioned earlier, when I was project managing a renovation, one or two, actually I've done a few since I've been here, and coordinating in my own sort of bubble Dutch. And yes, I understand a lot of Dutch, but when someone speaks too quickly, and with workmen, it's very difficult to relay that actually my Dutch is not perfect. So I really need this to be clear, so I know exactly what is going on. So those situations were really hard to deal with, I guess. But nonetheless, were dealt with, and you know, it worked out fine. But they were frustrating, and actually the other thing that is probably the most difficult for me is form filling, tax filling, and tax in itself in any language is is a challenge, but form filling in any official capacity can be challenging.
And you did it yourself, or did you?
I did. Well, I did get help. I ended up ringing the tax office, and the very nice lady walked me through some things. And again, I think it's from experience of getting getting frustrated and angry with people on the phone and impatient has taught me probably not the best approach. So saying, look, I really need help with this, and just I you know, and of course appreciating their help, their input, rather than just taking for granted that, you know, they took the time out of their day to help me. So and making sure that they are appreciated for that.
Yeah, it's good to stay calm and focused, and also.
Yeah, not always easy though. If you're feisty.
Yeah, but delegating of these tasks help a lot that you are asking for.
Yeah.
The next question is, could you recall a time when you disconnected with people, culture, or etc.? How did you handle the situation, and what was the outcome?
Right, disconnected.
Yeah, disconnected with people or culture.
Well, I'm sure there've been several, but you know, I think the common theme of when disconnection is most obvious is when there's a bigger group of people, whether it be, you know, I've been to several classes, I've been to several sort of gatherings, whether social or, you know, in training or whatever. And I think and retreats. And when there are a lot of people, of course, all having the same language, and that is really, and no matter how fluent in Dutch you are, I think there's always a missing link. And yeah, so it's like one word of misunderstanding can mean that you miss the whole point. So I think that can really make you stand out as being separate, and feel separate as well. So there's been several occasions where that is the case. And you know, what was the outcome? Well, in a lot of cases, I would separate myself, and I would go somewhere else. Or if that wasn't possible, then on a few occasions I would then contribute. But then you risk sort of being all eyes on you. It's suddenly, oh, this person has spoken, and trying to decide whether or not that is being judged. So it can be mistaken as being judged, or the other possibility is that they're actually interested. So it's trying to decide which one is going on. So it can be a little bit of an inner battle when that happens, because again, you have to be an expert at reading the room and reading the people. And also, if you are a highly sensitive person, which I am, it can be even more amplified, that the disconnection that you may feel for probably no reason, but that doesn't become apparent at the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's always makes sense, and that you have some difficulties if you're trying something new, and you are just taking the necessary steps to ensure what the people thinking or not thinking,
Yeah.
and you are just trying to be successful in every situation, and you are trying to adapt, but of course you have some issues and some questions why people like this or like this.
Yeah, and has been willing to take a risk. And you know, going back to the being vulnerable, it's being willing to be vulnerable without being overly vulnerable. So again, it's a fine line between contributing and taking a risk and being vulnerable to contribute to a group, and being too much. So that, you know, that comes with, I guess, practice and experience, and making a lot of mistakes. So, you know, we learn from our mistakes, as you know, we learn all the time. And if we didn't make mistakes, then how would we learn? So, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And what's the biggest misconception the natives have about you, and why do they think that?
Misconceptions they have about me.
Yeah.
That I think they have about me. They may not, or what I think they may have about me. Okay, well, it would have to be that perhaps that I don't know enough, that I'm not enough of something, that I'm not, that I haven't had enough experience with life in my 57 years on the planet, roaming the globe.
Really nice for your age. So,
But
it's
it's interesting because
yeah.
it's that may be a misconception that that they may feel that I don't have much to contribute, and I think part of that may be the things that I would talk to people about when I'm okay. So I have a dog, so I'm out and about quite a lot, and I bump into someone who I may recognize or who I know from dog walking or whatever, and the conversation in Dutch would take place. And because of my, I guess, non-fluency, but I do speak Dutch, I will come up with very basic conversation and walk away feeling, what was that? That's not something I would normally talk about. So so I guess at the end of the day, it's more superficial. So they may perceive me as being more of just a nothing of substance underneath, because that's not what they're seeing. That's not what they're hearing. In basic, chit chat when you're out and about. And I just use the language that I know, the Dutch that I know. And a lot of it is just day-to-day boring stuff. I would never talk to, I wouldn't have a deep and meaningful conversation with a friend or something about the stuff that I would talk outside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it's difficult to have a meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
Also, because your language, you don't know a lot of words, and then of course they are talking about the weather and
Yeah.
else, maybe only the weather.
Well, I mean, I don't care about okay, I'd like it to be warmer, but I don't care about whether it's going to rain later or not. But I find myself saying those things when I'm out, just because I know how to say it in Dutch. So I end up boring myself.
Anyway, it's a good self-reflection for you that you know this, and you're very transparent in this.
Yeah, well.
And another question, tell me about the time when you were communicating with the Dutch and they didn't understand you. What did you do?
They didn't understand me. Oh, I actually would probably relate it to wit, humor. And this is probably going back to the first time I lived here. So my Dutch was really not what it is now. And humor is really important to me. I mean, how else would it be? I grew up in Ireland. So it comes, with my nationality. So I found that sarcastic humor, which is, witty humor, doesn't really, it doesn't go anywhere. So I think that often times when, if I said something sarcastic humor wise, it would be literally translated as if I'm being serious. So it just, the meaning is completely lost. And it's lost. And that's just basically, quote unquote, lost in translation. So it's not that the Dutch don't have humor, they do, but it's lost in translation.
It's nice said. Can you give an example of one of such miscommunicating?
Oh, I really can't, but I it could be something as simple as Oh, I don't know. I was running around like a headless chicken, or that's a very poor example. But for example, if I said, "Oh, running around like a headless chicken," then it would, oh no, poor chicken, or the chicken, or so, literal. And that's not like I said, the example, but something like that. It would be taken on a literal level, which is completely, again, lost.
Yeah, you need to have a lot of patience for Dutch.
Yeah, and again, that's not to say that there's not humor. Of course, there's there are people who do really understand. And this is it's a very sweeping statements that I'm making in terms of like not having a sense of humor, but that's not entirely true. There are definitely pockets of real understanding of wit and humor, and especially among the younger ones as well. Yeah, and some of the older ones. So, and some in between, not sure.
Okay, so you need to take time to make sure that you are being understood.
Yeah, I think so.
So you need to also adjust your style to align with others. So when other people to adjust to you.
Yeah, actually, and I at that time, after a few times of expressing, sometimes you just can't hold it in when there's something funny comes along, and you can't hold it in, and then over time you realize what is okay and what is not okay, or what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And I'm not saying that some of the things were not acceptable, of course not, but some of the things just would not be understood. So it's best to not. That's why it's great to have friends I can call and laugh with a lot.
Laughing is always good with your friends.
It is. I mean, it's so important, and it is the number one immunity booster, is laughing, and that's why laughter yoga, for example, is so good for you. So we need it. We need more of it.
Yes, you can tell a lot about this because you are a very healthy yoga coach.
Well, yes, and whilst I don't practice laughter yoga, I know people who do, and it's just a phenomenal part of your day. And if you just even the physical movement of laughing, you're engaging some of the your core muscles, and the immune boosting benefits they far outweigh any kind of flu vaccine, but we won't go there.
I know, but great to know this. So the next question, maybe you can tell me about one of your favorite experiences in the Netherlands.
One of the many, actually. It would have to be on one of the yoga retreats or the ecstatic dance retreat I went on a couple of years ago. Yeah, there. Yeah, it was just amazing. And what made it amazing was a collection of like-minded people who were willing to be vulnerable, and whose acceptance of everybody, in all shapes, sizes, creed. It was wonderful. It was just like a big group hug.
Nice.
Yeah.
So dancing and movement unite.
Yeah.
And then you get a lot of energy and motivation via
Yeah, absolutely. And the
dance.
freedom as well, and freedom of self-expression as well. There was no, you have to do this, you have to do, you don't. You in fact, the motto of the retreat was, you can do everything, but you don't have to do anything.
Nice. How nice is it?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And another question would be, describe the best Dutch partner or Dutch friend you have dealt with, and what part of their character appealed to you?
Well, I have to say that this is a very recent thing because I have just met this wonderful Dutch lady. She is like a breath of fresh air. She's like the sunshine on a cloudy day. And what about her character that is, she's like a kindred spirit and open, vulnerable, welcoming, happy, spiritual, yeah, just all wrapped up in one amazing individual.
But how did you meet her?
Walking my dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Why is she so special? Why did she follow some courses, or is she,
No, her energy, her life experiences. Yeah.
and what does she do?
She's retired. She's an older lady, but you know, she's an older lady with the spirit of a very, very young girl. So, and I guess it was her energy and her spirit that, yeah, kind of drew me in, really. Yeah. So she's wonderful.
You have the same interests too?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just a really interesting background, a really interesting view on life, an uplifting view on life, and just positive. And yeah, just one of those people where you walk away feeling good instead of walking away feeling, oh, you know, great.
Nice to hear. I want to know you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's really nice.
And what did she do before?
What did she do before? Oh, she was working with some charities and fundraising for charities. And she's a musician as well.
Wow, that explains a little bit why she's happy and friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice you recently met her.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you make any other friends here in the Netherlands, and who are they?
Okay, that's a good question because yes, I have some long-term good friends from the Netherlands. One actually who I met, yeah, maybe I think 18 years ago, actually. Her son was in kindergarten with my daughter. And then we reacquainted when we came back from New Zealand. And we are kind of on the same wavelength in terms of, you know, health and not wearing masks, etc. But we can't talk about that. So we, yeah, her. And a few of the people who I would say I have a lot of acquaintances, but deep friendships is another story. Acquaintances, there are many, and deep friendships, there are very few. Because I feel that, and this is something I learned from, and it doesn't make it wrong, it is what it is. This is something that I've learned from reading something recently about the Netherlands. And a lot of people who grow up from kindergarten with the same people, the same friends, they kind of move through their life stages together. Being such a small country, also, they generally have their families spread out over the country. And they have very full lives involving their family and their friends, their close friends. So there's kind of not really a lot of room for new ones and for expanding that. So to not take that personally is really important, because it doesn't reflect on your ability to be a good friend. It is what it is, and their lives are pretty full, and they have families of their own, or they have good social life or whatever. So that's what I found quite, I guess, challenging is too strong a word, interesting to observe and to experience. That sometimes you think your acquaintance, oh, I've met, this really nice person, and, perhaps, we'll go have coffee or something together, but then that doesn't happen. And it's just an acquaintance. It's just acquaintance for briefly passing by. So I've learned that over the years as well, that's how they roll. And that's okay. That's fine. But just so that you know that it's not a reflection on who you are as a person.
Yeah, it's a good point. And the friends are not so easy to find. And so it's not only for you.
But when you do find them, and when you actually do get in, then they're there for life.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do stay.
Yeah, that's true. And tell me about something you really miss from your own culture.
And I don't really have my own culture, as it were, because I was brought up somewhere else, and then I moved around the world, and I lived in New Zealand. But I think all of it, I would think the one thing that I guess miss the most is humor. Yeah, I think humor, and right now is connection. So humor and connection, both intertwined.
Yeah, I can understand that. And could you describe a time when you applied for a job, and how did it go?
Oh, you mean how many?
Yeah.
Oh, how many? I'm not going to take one in particular, because there's a general theme. The general theme I've felt is what seems to be the apparent regulation is that unless you tick every single box, no matter if you tick 9 out of 10 boxes as super qualified or even overqualified, if you're missing one, it's a no. So, and in the beginning, in the first time around in the Netherlands, I felt that, I've got a collection of diplomas and certificates and qualifications. And I found that unless you have studied here, it doesn't mean anything. That's what I found in the first instance. So it just drove me into more study. But I think it's probably a little bit, it's really hard to describe this, but maybe an unwillingness to see beyond the box ticking, an unwillingness to see the possibilities in other areas than the one specific thing that you're missing. So they may actually miss out on an amazing person for the position because, they wore the wrong shoes, or not really, but for example, one box was not ticked, and I think that's really unfortunate, and people miss out, as well as the applicant misses out. So yeah, that's pretty much been my experience. And also, I have to say, age has something to do with it as well. I do.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
good rule.
yes,
You
I
look
do.
great. You do not look at your age. So
Well, I've taken my age off my CV, actually.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So, but I think that may have an influence, because there's so many young people now who are, who are technology minded. I'm not technology minded at all, but I'm open and willing to train. I'm open and willing to learn any new skill necessary. But that is not very easy to get across in an application.
Yeah, it's a pity. So they do not know that they're missing you, and are always investing in continuous learning. And I know that you actively seek out for new opportunities and a new new jobs. So it's a pity because
It is. So that just drives me more to learn more, and just keep doing what I'm doing, and just keep learning.
Yes, keep learning. And
Yeah.
another question will be, do you ever feel judged?
Yeah, and probably most of the time by myself. Judging me. And that does come across, and I've learned this as well, through personal development, is the more you judge yourself, the more that energy goes out and people judge you, or the possibility that people will judge you. So it is an energy thing. But yes, I have felt judged in the past here. And whether or not that was the case, like I said earlier, when you contribute to a group of people, for example, and you try to decide, well, was that me being judged, or are they just interested in what I'm saying? So it's very difficult to know. So yes, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But a lot of times we judge ourselves, and that comes across very, very strongly in the energy that you give out. And that's an open invitation to be judged.
So it's a very deep thought. So
It is. And, that's how energy rolls. Yeah.
And can you give an example when you felt judged? What was the reason of judging you? Or was the reason?
Ooh,
There was not a reason, but
I think it probably was maybe in one, I have done a lot of group work, classes, and I've attended classes, I've given classes. So in one of those scenarios, I think, yeah, I felt judged, both in taking a class and giving a class. And was it true? I don't know. And like I said earlier, probably I was judging myself. There are days when, like, for example, you give a class, and I'm sure you have it too when you're teaching, just not the best day. It's a day where your energy is just not feeling fantastic, and you may start to judge your ability and question your ability. Do I know enough? Is it good enough? And we all have those days. And those are the days where that energy will come right back at you. Maybe not, maybe it's not the case, but it's an open invitation for whoever is out there to pick that up and run with it and judge you. So it's a two-way thing.
okay, it's very interesting, and I learned a lot during this conversation already. So, and how Dutch women react on you?
How did they react to me? It varies actually. I don't really think of it in separately from how Dutch people in general react to me. I don't feel there's a big separation. I haven't experienced a lot of separation. However, I think that the time where it could be felt different is in a group scenario when there's a lot of women together, and this can happen in any nationality. When you have a lot of women together, there will be some judgment. There will be some responses, and not everybody likes everybody, and that would be strange if they did. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable, sometimes not, but that's just life, and that's life. Women do have a tendency to be more inclined to judge other women than they would do judge men, for example. But that's a whole other conversation. So, like, for example, you walk into a room and there's a room full of women, and you walk in as a woman. the men will tend to not look at you. It's the women who are looking at you, judging, possibly judging. So it's women look at other women for no other reason than their own self-judgment. And again, this is not making it wrong. It's just how women operate a lot of the time. So we notice other women because oftentimes we compare ourselves to other women. Oftentimes it can be in total admiration and inspiration that women look at other women to sort of gauge their own self on. So, and that's kind of a female trait in general. Again, this is general, this is a kind of a sweeping statement and not for everybody.
And would you rather choose a woman or a man as a friend?
Either. I have either. I have both friends. Yeah. I have male friends, I have female friends. And to me, a friend does not necessarily need to be a gender. A friend is the qualities of a friend remain the same for both. And it's the energy and the qualities of that person that makes the friendship flourish or disappear.
Yes, it's true. You already mentioned before that sometimes you felt disconnected and unable to follow a deep conversation with Dutch people. Is it regarding men and women, or you tried both, both sides?
To have a deep conversation with, well, yeah, actually, yes, because I don't differentiate when it's a case of just making conversation or talking, but I would have to feel very comfortable around the person, regardless of whether it's a male or female, in order to enter into a deep conversation. So I would have to feel comfortable around them to and I don't differentiate really.
Okay. So I would like also to ask you some questions about learning a new language.
Sorry, my dog is coming to say hello. Sorry.
Oh. Yeah, I cannot see the dog.
Come, yeah, come.
Show yourself.
Oh,
she's shy.
she's shy. Yes.
So question about the learning a new language, because first, of course, you need to learn Dutch if you come to the Netherlands. And although the most of the Dutch speak English, you will feel closer to them and they to you if you can speak their language, Dutch. And it's not only because of the language. They say language is a mirror of the human mind, of the human society and the culture. So why is it so important to learn a new language quickly? Do you have any experience?
Well, actually, the first time I came here, I bought a book called Teach Yourself Dutch in 3 months. And I actually was so grateful for having that book because it did really help me to just get a tiny little peek in the doorway of not necessarily being understood, but of showing that I was willing and would like to blend, be part of, or just to feel that I belonged. So it's a very difficult language, as you know. But yeah, it's important to learn it quickly because the quicker you learn something, of course, the more knowledge is power, and the more words you have in a country that you're living in, the better equipped you are to be able to live normally, live day-to-day life. So that's important.
Nice said. And what are the three things that are most important to you in how to learn a new language?
I think it would be relativity, meaning how it relates to how I live. For example, it would be much better for me to learn the language around what I'm interested in, how I live my life on a day-to-day, than go off and learn how to learn business Dutch or banking in Dutch. So for me, it's relativity and how I live my life. And that is also practicality. And understandability. And I really feel that it's more important to be understood than it is to be correct in grammatically correct. So if I can get across a message and people understand what I'm saying or want to say, that is so much more important than have I got the word order correct, for example. And people will always know what, if they are able to respond to what you have asked or to what you have said in Dutch, and then you know you have done a good job, whether or not it's correct. That's what I feel is important.
Yes, I say that too. Do not strive for perfection, but just for.
That's funny you say that, Serena.
Yes,
Being a perfectionist.
yes, but you know, we are teaching what we need to learn. So
Teach what we need to know most.
yes,
Yes.
I strive for passion and joy and energy, connecting with nice people. So, and understanding, of course, it's more important than perfection.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
so,
think so.
but uh, could you tell me about a time when you have been satisfied or energized and productive at learning? And
At learning anything.
yes, what were you doing? Maybe learning
Oh,
or new language or something else?
oh my gosh. I've studied so much online and offline as well. So many. Well, one of the courses that I can think of at the top of my head that was most, I guess, enjoyable and relatable and yeah, fun to do was the integrative nutrition course. And I think the reason it was because it was a lot of involvement, hands-on involvement, and a lot of like study buddying, practical application, and constant communication. And I think that was really important because we created various groups, online groups, and we would meet up and discuss and learn together and just basically communicate. And also we became very good friends as well. So and being accountable as well and having an accountability coach, and being an accountability coach as part of it. I think that was all really, it was very hands-on and it was really, really worthwhile. It was a really good course.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
And, how would you like to study Dutch?
Well, I think at this point we study Dutch. I again going back to the reasons to what I think is important in learning a language is practicality and being able to apply it to what your lifestyle is. So how would I like to learn Dutch now at this point would be to on a practical basis, on a conversational basis, on a day-to-day living basis.
So you choose the topic and then you're going to speak about the topic and the teacher corrects you. Is it right? Or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, or yeah, just general things or what you might do in your life for the week or the day or whatever, and then choose something like that, and part conversation, part written. That's also a good idea, so that you combine, so that you can, read your bank mail or yeah, things that apply to you on a day-to-day basis, that is easier to do. That's just to make life easier.
Do you want to use a book, or you do not want to use any?
Maybe I don't like homework. I don't like homework.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do have a good book to be referred to whilst learning. I think is important, but not to go off and do homework. I learning for me is learning, direct learning, not afterwards. Afterwards you can apply it, but not direct learning.
And how is about grammar? Do you want to study it?
Yeah, as part of the direct learning. Yeah, of course, it'd be part of correcting with writing and speaking. That would be the teacher's job to correct, and then take from that, okay, when you do this, you do that, as part of the learning process, so that you can apply it then in a day-to-day basis.
Yes, it's a very good manner to study any language, just to read something, or to make yourself a dialogue, and then to see which mistakes you are doing, and on the back of your mistakes to explain you what's the grammar, or what's mistakes, where did you make. So it's good. And but how do you find the right course and a nice teacher if you want to learn a language? What would you do?
I would send you an email.
Where would you search?
I would send you an email.
Yeah, because you know me, but how?
If I didn't know you, what would I do? I would go online. I mean, Google has everything. Ask Google.
How would you Google? Which words? I'm right.
Oh, Google. Learn Dutch online. Learn Dutch online.
Learn Dutch online. So maybe I can use it to find more clients and more students. Okay. And how do you determine what amount of time is reasonable for learning a new language?
It would have to be how much time you have to give, and you have to be realistic on how it's all very individual. How much time do I want to give? How much time can I realistically give without negotiation, without that? It's not negotiable. So this is the amount of time. If I have any more, but I don't need to do any more. If I won't do less, and this is set, and this is I won't do any less. But if I get a chance to do more, then that's a possibility, but I don't have to. So it has to be something that you can stick to, I think.
And how many hours per week would be reasonable for you to spend on learning a new language?
For me personally?
For you personally, if you...
Again, that would have to be depending on the week, really. I haven't thought of it like that, because that's not a priority right now. So it would have to be individual. It would have to be, if I said to someone, if someone said to me, how much time should I put in learning my language? Then how much time do you want to give? It's like exercise. Yeah. How much time do you want to work out?
How much time do you have?
How much time do you want? How much free time do you have? And it's so individual. It's hard to say. I can't say. No, it doesn't apply really.
No, and you want to learn everything during the lesson. So it would be, if you have one lesson a week, it would be just 1 hour, and then practicing what you learned with neighbors or with some.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but at the moment there's not a lot of contact anywhere, so practice may not happen. But I think it depends. Even 1 hour a week is quite a lot. So I don't know. I that's an individual thing, and I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
And how much do you value your own time?
A lot, can't you tell? A lot. My free time, my time is yeah, I do value my time a lot.
Because if you're going to study further language, you have to give up some free time and to study. So
yeah, and again, it's all about prioritizing. If learning another language was a priority for me, then then I would make time. Whatever you're doing most of, that's your biggest value. And if you say you want to learn a language and you look at how you spend your time and you're not learning the language, then it's not a priority. So you have to look at what is a priority, or whatever it is you're doing most of, that's your priority, whether you say it or not, whether you admit it or not. So, and if you say, oh, I want to learn a language, but I just don't have the time. Actually, if you really wanted to learn a language, you would make the time, because that would become a priority and you would be doing it right now.
it's a very good answer. And how do you feel about learning a new language online via Zoom or Skype or Teams?
Yeah, it's really handy because it's, yeah, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to arrange anything. You don't have to drive or, bike. You don't have to, it's there, isn't it? Click of a button, it's there.
For me, it's yes, it's easier, but there are a lot of people who do not know how Zoom is working, how Skype is working, and they are not so.
Well, the thing is with Zoom, it's the teacher who, like, for example, you invited me. All I did was I clicked on an email. There you are.
So it was easy. It was
Yeah.
not difficult.
Yeah.
So I would like that all other students think like you.
But people complicate things too much, and I guess if you are a little bit frightened about technology, then it can be daunting. It can be frightening because we fear what we don't understand. And trust me, I'm not a tech person at all. And for a long time, I still am, I guess, scared of technology. But you do it a couple of times and it becomes, well, you see how easy it can be. So Zoom is, it's the way of things at the moment. So it's very easy.
Yeah, and what is the biggest challenge when it comes to learning a new language?
Getting it wrong.
Yeah.
remembering it, and just remembering it, I guess.
Yeah, you know that you need to say the same word 7 times before you remember it.
Yeah.
So you have to use
I can imagine.
word, and then you.
And writing things down will make it easier, because writing things down triggers the creative part of the mind, which enhances memory as well. So actually physically writing, not clicking on a typewriter or a computer, actually physically writing it down with a pen and paper, that will stimulate the creative side of the brain and enhance the ability to remember. So that's really important.
Now I would like to ask you the final question, and maybe you can tell me something unique about you. What or most interesting thing about you that's not mentioned before? Maybe you want to add something from.
Oh my gosh. Most interesting thing about me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's put me on the spot. I don't know whether it's interesting or not. I'm vegan. Gosh, wow, you've put me on the spot now, and I really can't seem to answer that.
Oh, sorry, it's just.
I'm actually very simple. I'm simple. I live a very simple life, and it's not for everyone. But I'm not impressed with a lot. I don't. You don't need to impress me. to, you know, things don't impress me, like big things don't impress me. Elaborate things don't impress me. I love comfort. I love nature. I love good food. I'm a vegan. I eat a very healthy diet. I love exercise, preferably outdoors. I go to bed very early. I get up very early. I appreciate my own time. I do yoga. I practice yoga every day. And I adore my dog. And my values are environment, clean environment, both inside and out, and connection, I think, really. But really, on what you see is what you get. Simplicity. Life doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
Been there. I've had a complicated past, so I don't need that anymore. And that's all I need. I don't drive. I do drive, but I don't like to. I can drive. What I'm saying. I sold my car, so I think if you can't go on a bicycle, then don't go.
I like it, simplicity. So,
Yeah.
I would like to give the final tips for students, also very simple, who want to learn Dutch. Just go at your pace, take little steps, take your time, learn the material and be with it, and you will have the rest of your life to speak. So just enjoy learning.